Hello and welcome to my review of the Warhammer 40,000 Indomitus Primaris Space Marines Assault Intercessors squad. Currently the only way to get all of these 10 Assault Intercessors is through the Indomitus box set, which will set you back £125. I'm quite confident that these are popular models and that Games Workshop will release a separate kit, hopefully a multi-part kit like they did with the original Intercessors at some point in the future with many more poses. I'm not completely sure whether it will be a 10 model kit or whether it will simply be 5 models. I'm leaning more towards 10 for like £35 or so, which is what the original Intercessors came out as. But if they do, that's kind of the price point you can be expecting, either £35 or £40 for the 10 of them. Now they are a troop choice. They are the only troop choice in the Primaris force in the box set, and I'm glad. I'm very glad that they're troops, and I'm glad that they are not an elite choice. It's brilliant that we finally get another Space Marine troop choice, and it just so happens that they're close combat focused. So that adds to the current lineup of the normal Intercessors, the Tactical Squad, the Infiltrator Squad and the Incursor Squad, along with the Scout Squad. So it's brilliant. You know, the Infiltrators and Incursors are sort of like the Scouts for the Intercessors. It's just a bit odd that we now don't have any kind of assault tactical squads, just tactical squads armed with bolt pistols and chainswords and things. But still, it's great that we get an assault intercessor squad. What I will do is I'll go through all of these models individually, look at their detail, then I will draw some size comparisons with a number of Primaris Space Marines, some of them in the sets and some of the older models, the different versions of Primaris, and then I'll finally go through all of their rules. Pretty straightforward standard rules though, to be expected, but they do get more attacks, and their Astartes Chainsword adds an additional attack. That was the main sort of selling point for the changes in the previous codex last year. So let's have a look at these models individually then. Now an important note to make is that 5 of them are the same as the other 5. What I mean by that is, let's take these two for example. Now these two have exactly the same leg poses, and if you weren't to use glue or clippers, then they would be in this pose. Now you may, if I can zoom in, now you may like this pose, you might think it's cool, but when you start getting 5 of your 10 looking the same as the other 5, that's when you think, yeah, I need to change it up a bit. So what I did, and what I would advise you to do, is just snip the plugs off of the chest pieces and then add some glue, and then you can pretty much pose the other arms. This isn't the best pose I've done, but I think it almost works better than this one. This Primaris is charging, this one is kind of barging, barging and charging. Bargy and chargy. Anyway, you get what I'm talking about. You can pose them slightly if you cut the plugs off, and that goes the same for the heads as well. You can just cut those plugs off, and then you can rotate the heads a little bit in the neck joints. So that's my kind of tip to make them look a little bit different. Of course, some of them look better than others. Those I can pull off quite well. This one looks absolutely terrible. He's kind of moving that way, but his head's looking down, firing and finishing an enemy off. That doesn't quite work. This one, yeah, it doesn't look too bad, but his arm is outstretched and the gun is pretty much trailing on the ground, so that doesn't look that good compared to what he should be looking like, which is this one. This looks way better. He's sort of, you know, you can just sense the speed and urgency in this model, whereas this one is just like, well, I'm trailing my gun on the floor, my chainsword isn't really that high. But for the sake of having different Space Marines, different Primaris, but the same leg poses, I think it's a decent trade-off. I don't like having, you know, I wouldn't like having 2 of these exact Space Marines, put it that way. Even if they are in a slightly different pose, I think it's always a better trade-off. This is probably the worst one that I did. Terrible, absolutely terrible. When you look at what he should look like, that looks alright, but to be fair, this is probably the worst pose in this set of all of them. The legs are sort of moving forward, but his chainsword is all the way back. I can't really do much with that pose. You know, maybe I could have moved the head closer, you know, pointing forward, but then it would look a bit odd with that outstretched chainsword. Then you've got the Sergeant right here. And you do actually have an option. You don't have to have the Sergeant. You can have him helmeted, and you've got the holster there for the, I think it's a Volkite pistol, I think. But it's nice that you get this little shield, extra shield thing, and this is his counterpart right here. Got the chainsword mag locked, and then he's just got his hand outstretched, and they do look quite different. And when Games Workshop have modelled the same miniature in two different poses, it works. When you try and do it, it's a bit of trial and error, but you'll have fun doing that. And I like the fact that I only had to do it for this squad. I didn't have to do it for any of this other squads and units in this kit. All of the other squads and units didn't have any twins at all, except for the Necrons, but you can get away with that with the different weapon options and the heads, different heads too. But I like that. I like that out of all of this set, it was only this unit that had the twins. Whereas look at the Adeptus Sororitas sets, and yeah, you'll see that there were a fair few twins with the Archiflagellants and the Sisters Repentia and all those. Anyway, overall, they look all right. They do give you a sense of movement and purpose and speed, and it's just nice to see Primaris in these poses rather than, you know, stoic or just, you know, stood holding their ground, or just casually like walking the battlefield without their bolt rifles aimed upwards or anything. It's nice to see them, you know, that they can move, and they can move with speed. It's you know, I hope we see more of this in the future. Okay, so that's my take on how the models look themselves. Let's throw in some size comparisons. I think I was itching to show you the Lieutenant with them. So this is where it's slightly odd because of their poses in an action pose. It makes them sometimes look taller, like he does look a bit taller there, especially with that chainsword upright. But sometimes they look a little bit smaller. Well, maybe not, but it depends on the lean, how much lean they've got. This guy's got a bit of lean. Yeah, sometimes they look a bit shorter, because, you know, half of them is kind of on the angle. But there you go. That's how they measure up compared to the Eradicators and the basically the Blade Guard veterans. Well, the Eradicators, they're going to be similar size, if not a tiny bit smaller, and then compared to the Blade Guard veterans, oh, nearly. Compared to the Blade Guard veterans, they're going to look similar height, probably a bit smaller again, just because of their poses. But very much probably the most dynamic looking models in the set. Compared to the Necron models, of course. So we've got the Overlord, which, you know, if we have the Overlord against the Sergeant, the Overlord does stand a fair bit taller, a bit more imposing. If we compare a normal Necron Warrior, though, they are going to get crushed. You know, it's hard to see that these Necron Warriors are going to stand much of a chance against the charging Assault Intercessors here, just, you know, slowly hobbling over, you know, in their metal skeleton bodies, about to discharge this these energy weapons, when you've got these hulking great big Primaris about to just barge into them and smash them and, you know, chainsword the metal arms off, basically. But that's how they kind of measure up. And let's have a look at the usual suspects for the size comparisons. So a normal Space Marine here, like a Legacy Space Marine, they are a fair bit bigger, and they do make them look a bit silly. Compared to Slime Marbo, makes him look tiny, like a child almost. And then compared to your normal Primaris, which you probably wanted to look at the most, yeah, the same height. In some instances these look taller, especially the Sergeant there. He looks way taller because he's in so much more of a sort of an aggressive, active pose. So they're going to work really well, of course, with your other Intercessors in your army. Maybe I should compare them to a Hellblaster, which is very similar, and then also a Reaver. Get it right. They're just such a better alternative looking than a Reaver, because their legs are in a decent pose, and their chainswords and heavy bolt pistols look really good. Whereas the Reavers, I wasn't a big fan of the poses and the fact that you're missing a shoulder pauldron per se. And that's what I think Games Workshop set out to do with these new Primaris releases. You know, get the aggressors looking better with the Eradicators, get these Assault Intercessors looking better than what's come before them, even slightly better than some of the Intercessors actually, and hitting a home run with how good the Outriders look. Although they are a bit long, I think they've done a very good job for the first try for those. So what we'll do now is we'll just go through all of the rules for the Assault Intercessors. As I mentioned before, they are a troop choice. Fantastic that we get another troop choice. They are a power points cost of a 5, which is the same as a normal Intercessor squad. Brilliant again. I'm not sure how much they'll cost in match play, but we'll find out when the Codex comes out in a couple of months. Their stat line then, it reads movement of 6 inches, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, toughness 4, 2 wounds, 2 attacks, leadership 7 and a save of 3+, and then the sergeant has the same stat line but has 3 attacks and a leadership of 8. So nothing new there compared to all the other Space Marines that ever came before them in the squads. How does that stat line compare to normal Intercessor squad? Exactly the same. You know, normal Intercessors have 2 attacks each and they have 2 wounds each. The main difference is that these guys have the heavy bolt pistols and the Astartes chainsword. So the unit contains 4 to 9 assault intercessors and 1 assault intercessor sergeant. If this unit contains 6 or more models, its power rating is increased to 10, so it's actually costing power rating, so it's actually now costing you 10 power points for this unit right here. Every model is equipped with a heavy bolt pistol, Astartes chainsword, frag grenades and crack grenades. So the heavy bolt pistol, I've probably mentioned it in many reviews already, but it's a range 18-inch, pistol 1, strength 4, AP -1 and a damage of 1 weapon. It's alright. The Assault Intercessor Sergeant can be equipped with 1 plasma pistol instead of 1 heavy bolt pistol. Apologies, I think I called it a Volkite pistol at the start, but it is a plasma pistol. And it works just as a normal plasma pistol does, which is a 12-inch, pistol 1, strength 7, AP -3 and a damage of 1. But you can supercharge it to a strength 8, damage 2. However, if you get a hit roll of a 1 with that, then the bearer is destroyed and you know you lose both of your wounds and you lose your essentially 3 attacks there, 4 with the chainsword. It's quite a gamble just to get an extra strength and an extra damage. Now the Astartes chainsword, nothing's changed with it compared to 2019. It's the strength of the user, AP -1, damage 1, and when the bearer fights it makes 1 additional attack with the weapon. So very decent. That now changes 9 of these from 2 attacks to 3 attacks, so you're getting 27 attacks there, and then you've got the Sergeant which now has 4 attacks. So overall this squad of 10 can pump out 31 attacks, which is immense, and I wouldn't be too worried just taking a unit of 5 of them, because 31 attacks, if you manage to get them in combat, like you put them in a repulsor or something, that is going to be horrific, whoever is on the other end of that. The frag grenades and crack grenades work as they always have done. Abilities, they don't really bring anything new to the table with these 2 abilities. They've got Angels of Death, which you can find in Codex Space Marines, and then combat squads. If the unit contains 10 models, then during deployment, before any units have been set up, it can be divided into 2 units of 5 models. Absolutely fine. You know, you buy 10, but you can split them up. Keywords: Imperium, Adeptus Astartes, Infantry, Primaris, Assault, Intercessor Squad. So there you go. How do they really compare to a normal Intercessor squad? Like I say, their stat lines are exactly the same, but instead of the auto bolt rifles, and stalker bolt rifles, they can all have these Astartes chainswords, which is very nice, and makes more use of their attacks. It gives them 3 attacks each, 4 for the Sergeant. I wouldn't leave them out in the open, although they've got 2 wounds and their save is 3+. I would be putting them in a repulsor, definitely, maybe an impulsor, but I'd like to see a squad of 10 of them in a repulsor and get the repulsor to the enemy as quick as possible. But if you want to cheap out and get an impulsor with an invulnerable save and bomb it to an objective point or a weaker unit, then they're still going to cause a lot of havoc, even just having 5 of them, because you're still going to be getting your 16 attacks with 5 of them, including that Sergeant. So I'm pleased that they did make the models, and I'm pleased that they're making use of those extra attacks, and they are a viable assault squad. They may not be the cheapest, but they do pump out a lot of attacks, and they're quite survivable with their, you know, save of 3+ and 2 wounds each. What do you guys think of them? Both the models and the rules. I actually think that they're probably the weakest models in the Primaris force, looks wise. I think everything else is fantastic, but then again they're also the vanilla. So even though these poses are okay, they've had a lot of competition with all of the others, you know, the Eradicators and the Blade Guard Veterans and the HQ choices and the Outriders. All of those other models are such a high quality and such an improvement of previous iterations that trying to make like a troop choice compete with them is probably a hard task. They certainly aren't on the same level as the Crypto Thralls. If you compare them to the Necron offering of troop choices, you know, the Necron Warriors, it's hard to make those Necron Warriors look absolutely amazing, other than, you know, changing out the heads and putting bullet holes in them and chips and chinks and all the rest of it. There's only so much you can do, is what I'm trying to say, to make your standard sort of troop choice pop and stand out. And I think they've done a good job with the sense of movement and speed that they've been sculpted with. Anyway, what do you guys think? Please do put it in the comments below. It'd be great to hear from you. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Emperor Protects.